A recent poll from HarrisX revealed that roughly two-thirds of Americans prefer to wait and watch movies on streaming rather than seeing them in the theaters. It's well known that, thanks to COVID hitting in 2020, studios decided to release their films through streaming since so many people had to stay home through the pandemic. But even as theaters open back up, there's been a period of struggle for movie theaters. There are a large percentage of movie lovers who prefer the comfort of their home when watching a new film. You don't have to go out, pay for expensive tickets, or expensive snacks. You're not surrounded by people who constantly check their phones or loudly rustle through their snacks. You can even pause the movie and go to the bathroom without having to miss anything. It makes total sense why watching movies on streaming is so appealing to so many people. That being said, I've seen many stories and articles suggesting that movie theaters will die out altogether. While there's no doubt that theaters have had their struggles through the pandemic, my opinion is that movie theaters will be here to stay. It's been built up as a competition where people believe streaming will knock theaters out of business. But I disagree, and I strongly believe that the streaming and theater experience have and will continue to coexist. While I do like watching movies on streaming, I've always been someone who has cherished the movie theater experience, and I know a lot of people who feel the same way. The first movie I remember seeing in theaters was the re-release of Star Wars: A New Hope in 1997. That final battle through the trenches of the Death Star blew my 6-year-old mind. In the past year, I've seen anniversary re-releases of Return of the Jedi and the original Jurassic Park in theaters. These are two movies that I'd seen multiple times at home, but seeing them in the theaters, it felt like the first time. The visuals, sound effects, and John Williams' score hit so different when you're watching on the big screen with a booming sound system, not to mention being surrounded by people who are just as passionate about these franchises as you are. And yes, it's true that you can't pause and rewind a movie in the theaters like you can at home, but for me, that keeps me more immersed. It can be easy to get distracted by other things when you're at home. Sometimes you may even watch the movie in parts because you have other things to do in between. But when you're watching a movie in a theater, you're there and present for one reason: to watch that movie in its entirety. That's what keeps that immersive fictive bubble from bursting. And while yes, there can be others in the audience who are loud and distracting and don't follow etiquette, with the right crowd, the experience can be enhanced tenfold. You look me in the eye and tell me that Captain America wielding the power of Thor would have been more exciting to experience at home rather than in a packed theater. Another example is a more obscure one, M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. It's a weird little horror comedy that does a pretty good job at being suspenseful and even self-aware about its own quirkiness. Nothing to write home about, but man, I saw it in a packed theater on opening night, and the insane reactions from the crowd during those last 20 minutes absolutely sold it for me. I wouldn't have enjoyed The Visit nearly as much had it not been for the crazy crowd reactions. These are my personal anecdotes, of course, so let's look at some box office numbers next. There have been a lot more flops for big blockbusters these days, but to be fair, most of them have come from comic book movies, which used to be money printing machines. I think the box office flops are more a reflection of comic book movies than they are of the movie industry in general. MCU movies and Disney remakes used to be a surefire way to gross $1 billion, but none of these films have reached that point over the last couple of years. The billion-dollar movies we've gotten over the last 2 years are Avatar: The Way of Water, Top Gun: Maverick, Jurassic World Dominion, Barbie, Mario, and I'll throw Oppenheimer in there also because it came really close. These movies did a great job not just at marketing, but at knowing their target audiences and making a quality product that people would come out to see. Top Gun: Maverick was originally supposed to release in 2019 and went through a long series of reschedulings. But the filmmakers were adamant that this movie needed to be seen in theaters. Even with the pandemic, they didn't cave and put it on streaming. They knew that this was an experience that needed to be seen on the biggest screen with the biggest sound systems. And boy did their patience pay off. The film was a massive success that, along with No Way Home, is credited as the movie that saved theaters. The Barbenheimer phenomenon last year was also an amazing event for movie theaters. I saw both movies on opening night, and I have never seen so much pink in my life. It was really nice seeing people enthusiastically flock to theaters for two drastically different movies. And let's face it, although Christopher Nolan is one of the premier directors in Hollywood, a 3-hour biopic that's mostly filled with dialogue isn't the kind of film that would gross nearly $1 billion, but the Barbenheimer meme really seemed to give it a boost. This goes to show that movie theaters still have their place. Audiences may be pickier about what movies to invest their time and money into, but for the right films, people will show up in droves. 2021's Dune released in theaters and HBO Max at the same time, and I watched it on streaming. I did love the movie, but as I mentioned in my latest review of Dune Part 2, seeing this one in theaters made it look and sound so much grander. The scene where Paul Atreides silences the Reverend Mother is good enough on a small screen, but when Paul Atreides' Bene Gesserit voice booms through a theater sound system with the bass turned up, it is so much more impactful and actually made me jump. Dune Part 2 was a theater exclusive and, in 3 weeks, already surpassed its predecessor with its box office numbers. The hunger for seeing a movie in the theaters is still there, but it's up to the filmmakers to give us a reason to go. Instead of making lackluster films that people don't mind waiting to watch on their couch at home, they need to make more unique and visionary films that people are craving to see as soon as possible. So this is why I love the movie theater experience and why, despite the rise of streaming, I believe cinema will never die. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Do you prefer streaming? Do you prefer theaters? Or do you like to do a little bit of both depending on the movie? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a good one.